Hey everybody, welcome to the Cripescast. This is the podcast where we talk to people for and or from the Midwest. I'm your host, Charlie Behrens, and we are brought to you by Jolly Good Soda. Hey everybody, welcome to the Cripescast. We've got a pretty special episode today, if I do say so myself. Nate Bargatze is on the podcast. He's an incredible comedian, been one of my favorites for a long time. His new special, Hello World, is on Amazon Prime. You can see Nate on tour. He's touring right now. We had a really good conversation just about comedy. I think we went deep in the comedic weeds. Colleen, what do you think?
I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet.
You haven't listened to it yet?
No.
Oh my god!
Hannah did the edit. I'm going to do the final pass.
Oh,
so yeah, but I'm super excited, and I know you did. Well, Hannah said the same thing. She said it is very comedically based, like you guys talking about comedy.
Yeah, we went in the weeds, but I think it was really fun, and especially I know there are a lot of comedians who listen to this podcast, and I think they'll really enjoy sort of getting the kind of the inside scoop, a little bit the inside baseball on, sort of even stuff that he struggles with as a comedian now, being at literally the top of the comedy game. So it was really interesting for me to hear, being much lower than he is, but.
Oh, that Midwest self-deprecation. You gotta love it.
That's just honesty when we're talking about Nate.
I suppose, yes. No, he's really great, and I've seen his stuff I've seen it for a while now on Netflix. He has a bunch of specials on Netflix, but his new one's on Amazon Prime. I've always really enjoyed his very dry, matter-of-fact delivery. I think his deliveries, I haven't seen that in a lot of people. Yeah,
that's how you know a great joke writer, though, is when they can be when they can... And it's not to say not all great joke writers deliver this way, but the way he delivers is so subtle and so nuanced that he really lets the words get the punchline, not as much the emotion or the the theatrical presentation.
Yeah,
or something.
he just lets it out. He lays it out there, and I really like the way he does his stuff. It's funny, ever since that interview, even though I wasn't there, my TikTok feed has been nonstop Nate Bargatze clips.
Oh, really?
Bargatze? I keep saying it wrong. I make it Italian. Bargatze. It sounds like it'd be Italian.
Yeah.
But it's been I've been having a ton of Nate clips on TikTok.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Why did you use that? Why do you get more of those clips? Were you just searching for it?
I don't know. I feel like the phone listens.
The phone does listen, for sure.
That for sure happens. And I think probably because I follow you and other comedians. So if I'm on the comedy side of TikTok. Got it. That probably happens.
It's all listening. So everything's listening all the time.
How was your weekend, and what did you get Molly for Mother's Day?
Oh, thank you for rescuing me from the rabbit hole I was about to go down.
Yeah, no, I don't want to. It's too
Mother's Day was very fun. Me and John got Mom a bird bath.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, a nice little bird bath.
Nice.
So, the birds will be able to bathe all summer long in my mom's garden. So there you go. Nice. It was very fun. We had all the kids were there except for Nora. Nora was visiting her boyfriend, Tall Potter.
What's his name?
Sean.
Call back if you've seen the Sisters Podcast Part 2.
Sisters Podcast. Yeah, I did not know Nora's boyfriend's name. They had been dating for a year. But, yeah, my sister's getting married to a fellow comrade. I didn't know Comrade's name for a long, long time either.
Yeah.
You gotta kind of,
You guys have a lot of siblings. For me, it's I know everything about my one sibling and his wife. So that's that. But Bridget's home.
Bridget is back. My other sister Bridget has returned from Ireland, the prodigal son. We had pizza for her the other night. But it was it was a fun weekend.
Yeah.
So
nice.
did you do anything? What'd you do?
I was the daughter that didn't go home, so I had immense guilt because I didn't go home for Mother's Day.
Not going home for Mother's Day. At what age do you stop going home for Mother's Day every single Mother's Day without question?
Well, considering that it's just my brother and I, it feels really hard when 50% of the people are there.
Yeah. Imagine being Nora when 95% of the family was there and you're the only one.
Yeah, but the 5%, you have 95% there. You guys have more, so if one person's gone, it's fine. But if it's just my brother and I,
oh yeah,
and I'm gone, that's 50%.
Yeah, that is a lot of pressure that smaller families put on their children.
My mom didn't do anything, but I was super this look at God. I was super emotional this weekend, just because I was like, oh, I'm home. I haven't been home since Christmas.
Well, you could have driven. You could have made the drive.
I know, but I'm going out. Like, it was like.
It was too much.
So much.
My grandma, forget your mother only gave birth to you, you know?
My grandma and I were on the phone. I FaceTimed her and she's like, are you home right now? And I was like, no. And she's like, oh, I figured you would have gone home for Mother's Day. And then I was like, okay, Mary, like, shut up. I feel bad enough.
Or at the very least, gone down to see your grandma.
Which I did.
Oh, you did?
I ended up going to have dinner with her.
You had so much guilt about not seeing your mom. You went to see your grandma.
Yeah. And I went to go visit them, and they live in a new, like, old person's community. Is
that the proper nomenclature for that? Or is that, it's a retirement community?
Yes. Thank you. My grandpa, my no-no, which is Italian for grandpa, he's a big hit with all the ladies.
Is he?
Yeah.
Watch out.
Yeah, and my nona's like, okay, go away. Like, go enjoy. Go walk around. Oh, so, yeah, they're loving the new digs. And, so it was fun to see them.
It's almost like kind of like, you're at home for a very, very long time, and then you go off to college, and there's this whole new dynamic sort of in the dorm. Is it kind of like dorm life over there a little bit?
My dad says the same thing. Both my grandparents, I don't think they graduated they're from Italy, so they like came over and immediately started working, and they like never went to college. They never had that like experience.
Yeah.
And so as soon as we get there, like my no, he's 80, and he was in this old house for like 42 years. And so they had like their routine. But now that he's like with all of these other people, he's like walking twice a day. He's out like being like the mayor.
I love that dynamic that your no-no's just out there like just, just looking at the menu,
Literally. So. I'm going to have a new grandma. I'm so excited.
And with that, let's get to our conversation with Nate Bargatze. So Bridgestone, I was just talking with your assistant about, that's a homecoming show. So do you have like everybody coming out of the woodwork asking for comps and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, dude. It's like a big thing. It's like a crazy, but because I got her and my wife, and I got another buddy, because I got a lot of high school people because I'm from here. So they've done really good at like balancing it out. And, so it's been, because like we got the comps and for a lot of people, and then but everybody, I think it's been pretty good. I haven't had to deal with it, so that's been
that's good. They've stopped hitting you up for the comps. They just they know the proper channel.
They know where to go now. They know where to go.
That's cool. Have you done? You've done a ton of big spots, obviously, like from a comedy perspective, doing a big theater like that. Do you prefer it? Do you still like a small comedy club at the end of the day?
They're all just kind of separate. I would say, so Bridgestone's gonna be an arena, and like I just did where the PPG, where the Pittsburgh Penguins play.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very big. And so there is a little bit that you feel like you're like, how can I entertain this many people? So you kind of have that. There's always like an imposter feeling you have where you think like, who are they here to see? It doesn't feel like it could ever be you.
Yeah.
But the arenas do feel great. But yeah, I mean, a theater like they're all got their own special kind of thing. I think like a comedy club, a theater, like the Ryman is like a perfect theater, and it's like 2,500 seats or something like that. Something like that, that range, maybe 3,000 in the 2,000 to 3,000 is like it feels like a real show, and it's it feels just great. But they all have their things that you're like, well, this is great.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like when you do a theater that big, you've always got pockets of somebody laughing at something, which kind of helps.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, they're getting up. Yeah. You're watching. I mean, you do feel like you can sometimes see, I always have it very dark. So I can't see out.
Oh, you do that that's your preference.
Yeah. I like it dark, cause it's like, I'll look, cause if it's real bright and then it's like, feels like obvious I'm looking at someone, it's like uncomfortable.
Plus then you see that one guy who's just like this the whole whole show?
Oh, I did one of my first TV things was comedy.tv, and the people they got in, they had them a guy. They just had the same crowd sit in for this TV taping. So they were there for like 8 hours.
Oh, brutal!
Like, yeah, I mean, 30 comedians, and so I just watched the guy. I mean, he was just furious. He just sat and was just never laughed at a joke. And I mean, there was 1,000 people there, but you find I found that one guy.
Yeah.
That's all you see after,
I know. Have you seen Almost Famous?
Yes.
You remember when he's like, I find that one guy that's not getting off and I get him off. Do you remember that line?
Yes.
If I find that one guy who's not getting off, I go through all this childhood trauma in my head. I'm like, that's my dad staring right at me. I know. It's got to look like I didn't clean the basement or something.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what you never want to usually it's like, sometimes you gotta be like, yeah, some people don't laugh. They're not going to be a crazy laugher or whatever. There's a million different things. They could be enjoying the show, but it is hard not to just be like, how do I get this dude? And I'll change my act. Like you're in the middle of it. You're like, all right. He ain't liking that. Let me try this. Yeah. And there's 999 people that are like, we're having a great time.
Yeah.
And I got to make a point. I got to make a point to this guy who might at the end of it be like, yeah, I had a good time. I just was, not smiling. Like, all right.
Yeah. Or he's like, yeah, I've got hearing problems and my aids aren't working. So,
Yeah. Like, all right. That's cool, man.
But it's like having a YouTube video or a special out and having a million amazing comments, but that one person or those 10 people who say those 10 things, you're like, mm-hmm. Yeah. I knew I wasn't worth any of this,
Yeah. Reading that stuff it's hard, and it's hard not to do it. Like I'll go through it and I'll do it because sometimes even if you read too much good stuff.
Yeah.
And so it goes both ways. But it's hard not to look at it. You want to look at it. But you got to have the balance. I was like, so I'll after the special, or I can get through a phase where I'll be like, all right, let me just check and see what people are saying. Yeah. And then I'm like, I got to get out of it. And, then I'll try to back it off because it's not a good phase to be in.
No, it's a very, I put myself out there, and if this doesn't go well, it's all downhill from here kind of a phase, as opposed to thinking about how to be creative for the next phase, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to do in your latest special to do like the round, and was that more difficult like in the edit after the fact?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely edited differently because of that. I like the round, so that I've performed at that place a lot. I like performing in the round because I don't move around a lot anyway, but when you're in the round you got to kind of make a circle.
Yeah.
And so it makes you move around more. And I can kind of pace in a circle, and I just kind of like it. I wanted to, with this special, is like, I love that venue. That's where Carlin shot his special, where he said the 7 dirtiest words.
Yeah.
Louis C.K. shot a special there. And so it's kind of a big place to shoot a special, like a legendary kind of place. And so I wanted to not to shoot at me comparing myself to them, but it worked out that I haven't been back to Phoenix. And so it was like, in that place has had these great specials and it's always looked awesome. And then, so I was like, that's why we chose there. And then in the round, I watched Carlin's special. I've watched it before, but I watched it again that week. And so what made me think about even showing the audience was in Carlin's special, the way they had it lit up, because his was shot in like 77. The way they had it lit up was you could see the crowd, and they're pretty lit up. Yeah. Like you can see the crowd in mine, but I mean his is like you can see the crowd. I mean it's the light. They didn't have the lighting that they had, but that they do now. And so, but I kind of like that. I was like, I like that you can see the crowd. And my last special was outside because of COVID, and they had masks on. So I kind of wanted to do one showing people like having fun and laughing. And and capture all of that. So that was it all just kind of came together timing wise and locate that. I was like, oh, this will be perfect. Let's do it there.
Yeah. That's always, I mean, you got to have a lot of confidence in yourself, obviously, in your jokes and all that, because, if a joke doesn't do well, even if a lot of people are laughing, but a few people are like, doing this again, then you can see that, and sort of that round thing.
Yeah.
Did you have a guy in there that ruined any shots? Cause yours was kind of a little out of focus too. I think I remember. I don't remember that well though.
We had,
audience, not you.
Audience. Yeah. You can't, they would be able to tell who they are. You can tell they are, but it's not like it's
super
critical.
sharp.
But we didn't have anybody mess up. There was a couple things. There was like maybe there's some exit signs we might have like kind of tried to cut away from, or we had a laugh that was kind of like very noticeable. And so we had to kind of mess with that a little bit. The guy who did that laugh, his daughter we mentioned it on the podcast, on my podcast, and his daughter was like, that's my dad. So
she knew it.
She knew it because she's like, yeah, he has. And he was just like near the microphones. It was, the guy was having a good time. But it's one of those you're like, we can't, it's going to be tough to have it in the whole time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would stare at this. Like I had both shows was like, I stared at two people each show, and I can notice them when I go back and watch this, but it's like, you're making this circle. And I would almost like, there's almost my bearing, because I would make my way back to this one girl I would look at. She had a very big smile. And so you could see like her teeth, and so I kind of was like, she was easy to kind of spot. And so every time I would come back, I was just kind of like, I could kind of check in on her and get my bearings.
Yeah.
You go make another lap.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially for someone who likes it all dark too, that's kind of an interesting choice as well.
It was very different. It was something that I was not, would not have been normal. My normal shows are not like that, but I knew it would look great.
Yeah. By the way, I think I remember, I was golfing with John Christ one time, and he was telling me that I think he was using your balls that you got him with his name and phone number on them. Yeah. So if he lost them, people would have access to that. And
oh yeah, I got him. I gave him like 4 dozen golf balls, and I put his phone number, and because he gave me golf balls too. We both did it kind of to each other.
Okay.
Not knowing. He gave me golf balls that had all my credits on it, my name, and then I gave him golf balls, and I had his phone number on them. But I gave him 2 dozen, and then I also gave 2 dozen to 2 of the worst golfers I know, and they go play much different courses.
Yeah.
So I was like, these balls will be lost in maybe one trip. So those are the ones I was the most excited about, because, John might go play somewhere nice. It's not going to be that bad if someone calls you, but like, you can go play some other courses. It's going to, I don't know.
These guys are doing the par 3 courses.
Yeah.
It's sending it to the park nearby, just some kid on a swing set sees it. Yeah. That's hilarious. That's great. I think he was playing with it that time, by the way. So he's.
Yeah. I like that he wasn't. Yeah. He makes you really look for that ball. He's like,
yeah, I know.
I was like,
elongated the game by like 2 hours. Where did you get your start in comedy? Where'd you like come up?
I was in Nashville. I didn't start in Nashville. I moved to Chicago first. Mm-hmm. So I took a comedy class, comedy college in Chicago. I moved there with a buddy, and then I started there with like Hannah Burris and Pete Holmes and TJ Miller, Kamel Nagiani. Like, there's a big group of us that were kind of there.
Yeah.
And Pete moved to New York, and then I moved to New York right after Pete. So I was in Chicago for doing comedy probably a year and a half, 2 years. And then,
did you know comedy then, or were you like doing mics and stuff there?
I was doing mics. I was taking a comedy class. Like,
okay.
I didn't really know what to do. I went there and took some classes at Second City, and but I didn't really like improv. And the guy I moved with, he liked improv. So he kept doing that. And then I just took a comedy class and started doing stand up. And then we just they had the Lion's Den was this famous mic they had that would last. It was like the longest running. I think it's done now. But at the time, it was the longest running mic. And so a lot of comics would go on. And then Comedian came out, this Jerry Seinfeld documentary.
Yeah.
So if people around my age, that was a giant movie for us, for comics, because it was like once that movie came out, we were all like, all right, we got to go to New York. Like, I think New York just saw a group move because we all watched that and we're like, well, we have to go now. And so we moved. That's when I moved to New York. And then I did exactly like Pete Holmes at a show.
Yeah, I saw it with the barking.
Yeah, so I did that with Pete. So I did that show. It was very interesting seeing that show because it was, that I was with Pete and we were barking at that Boston Comedy Club.
And was that like, do you look back at like those days of barking and everything like that with sort of like oh man, those were the good days before I made it, kind of a thing, or are you like, no, I'm cool where I'm at?
I look back very fondly at those days. I mean, probably like someone would look back at college or something,
Right.
Those were the New York days. I look back as like, that was it. I felt like right when I left New York is I could look at like felt like it got more serious.
Yeah.
But that was like the drinking days, you're out till 5 a.m. days. I mean, I'm doing 5-minute spots for 2 people and all these things that, yeah, I don't want to go back to. I would never go. But they made who I am today. The crazy thing is like doing this Bridgestone show is when I would bark and hand out flyers, like, you would daydream about like, could I play, one day playing Bridgestone. And so I look very fondly back on them because I do distinctly remember standing out on that corner in 20-degree weather, handing out flyers, being like, got a great show. And then trying to get people to go watch the show. And, but then you would daydream about like, can you imagine if I got to, you're just daydreaming how big, could I get big? Could I, whatever. And so it's pretty wild to be like, next week is like, kind of like it's kind of getting checked off.
That's so cool, man. Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Your style, it's like you said, you don't move around a lot. Like you're not like super big in your like delivery on anything. Is that kind of how your style has been throughout your career? Or did you start off trying to do like how somebody else does comedy and then find your voice over time?
Yeah, I was always pretty low energy, I guess, dry. And I never moved around a lot. I definitely was trying to find my voice. I mean, I was always slow. Like a lot of comics they talk pretty quick when they first start and they talk too fast. Yeah. And I never really had that problem just because being from the South and talking slow, like I don't think I could ever talk fast enough. So that was an advantage of having that I didn't have to worry about that. Cause that's something that a lot of people struggle with is cause they just pound through these jokes and you're nervous. So when you first start and you're just saying everything so quickly. And you got to slow down. And there's times where I think I'm flying and someone's like, no, I mean, not even close, dude. So yeah, it was, it was New York is when I started slowly, I kind of learned how to write jokes first before I think I really figured my voice out. I mean, you kind of figure your voice out. You figure it out pretty late. I think you figure your voice out early or you figure jokes out or like it's either one or the other. Like some people just have a voice. And so they kind of, when they're there, they're just funny. And the way they say stuff, they're funny. And then there's other comics where they can have good jokes, but you could tell they're, like Kurt Metzger was always someone that was very funny, great joke writer. But at the beginning, when I would see him, like he wasn't the most likable on stage, but his jokes were like insane. Yeah. And so it's like, it was fun to watch him like, well, this has got to connect at some point, and then when he got it to both connect, it's like, then he became the comic that he is. It's just this great comic. but yeah, you slowly figure out stuff. You try not to. You can also sound like people. That's the big one. A lot of people sound like David Tell in New York, and especially around my time. And so you got to kind of get that rhythm stuff out of you. Like you don't want to watch too much Brian Regan. You can sound like him. You gotta be. But at the beginning, you kind of always sound like someone.
Yeah. Even the physical. I remember I was going through like Bill Burr kind of phase for a little bit during some of it, and I just realized I started to like hold the mic stand and like lean on it, just like he does. And I was watching some tapes back. I'm like, oh man, that's like a really bad impression.
Or rocking it a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the rock, the lean. Yeah.
Soder went through a big Burr phase.
Yeah.
Like he would get on he would get on it because it was like we were just seeing Burr so much, and he would just rock it and drill into that. And so I remember we'd all kind of keep an eye on each other too, like just so like it's like, hey, dude, you're doing this thing, because sometimes you don't know you're doing it.
Right.
And but you got to be aware, and then sometimes you can also have another buddy come up and be like, hey, I'm just letting you know it looks like you're doing an impersonation of Burr up there. So just, and you're like, I bet I am. Then you realize you're like, you're just very influenced because you're seeing these comics, before I started comedy, like I knew, Seinfeld or Cosby or Sinbad. You only know like famous people. And then once you get into comedy, like Burr was a big deal for me because I saw Burr go from, I barked to him at Boston Comedy Club when he was running his first Letterman set, and he came to me, and I was like, you'd always be so embarrassed if you just turned and try to hand a flyer to a comic.
Yeah,
you're like mortified. I've been doing comedy for a year or 2 years, but then Burr, I was like, I'm sorry, and then he was like, he doesn't care, and then he's like, I got to run a set. He's like, do you know any places to do comedy? I know, I'm an open micer, so I'm like, yeah, everywhere.
Yeah.
And so Burr was a big deal for me. I saw Burr from like his first Letterman to I watched people figure out Burr. I went to his HBO One Night Stand taping. I saw like how much he murdered on that HBO One Night Stand taping. I saw his, like we'd go to Caroline's and watch him. No one was there. And then the next year they wouldn't even let us come in to watch him because it was too crowded. Like they were like, you can't come. And so like, he's always been someone for me that was like the guy above me that you're like, I didn't know who he was. I moved to New York, and then you see him and you're like, this is nuts. And then you just watch him just skyrocket to where he is now.
Yeah. He's one of those guys too, that I think, I've seen him at the store a few times back when I was doing that. I feel like he works a lot of stuff out on stage. Is that kind of, do you do any of that, or are you like tight to the joke? And you may have a couple variations, but it's pretty much on paper before you take it to stage, or do you like figuring stuff out on stage?
I do it all on stage. I've never written out anything. I write like a note, like if I think of a joke.
Yeah.
Some stuff last night, like I'll type in like the notes, or I write. I always have a note card.
Yeah,
I'll fill out a note card I've done that since 2003 or something. But I write my set list out on a note card.
Just the word that'll describe what you're talking about.
And then so a lot of note cards are the exact same because I'm doing, but then they change. But I feel like that was, look, I think a lot of people work stuff on stage, but in New York, it was like, especially back then, you could go up so much. You could do open mics. You could do so many shows a night that I think everybody kind of did it on stage because it was like you were just able to go up every night.
Right.
So you would just do it. And then, and once you get past at the clubs and can start working, then you're doing, you can do 4. People did 12 shows or the most I ever did was 7 in one night. And so it's like you could go like hammer out a joke very much, in a week, because you could just be I'm gonna say it every night, and then you just think of the wording.
Yeah.
So I said it like that.
Yeah, I think New York's a much better place to do that. I mean, I did a lot of my open mic stuff in LA, and you go to like 2 mics, 3 mics a night, but then 1 mic you can't get up at, and then you're, spending like an hour and a half in a car to the next mic, and then you can't get. Whereas at least in New York, it's a little bit more friendly for that kind of thing, I think.
Yeah, you're closer, and it's more bouncing around, and like, you can get around. Yeah, I know LA is not I mean, and that's what it is. It's just different kind of things that you got to do. At least it's like you try to get up every night. I mean, no matter what, it's like getting on stage every night, whether it's multiple times or one time, but it's like trying to at least get on every night. And then a big part is when you can get in front of real people.
Yeah.
Because these open mics and you're doing with comics, it's hard you need to work on a joke. Like you need to learn how to make a joke good. And open mics kind of like, you don't really get a chance to do that because you can do the joke twice and then you're like, all right. I mean, it's the same people. And no one's even listening to you, and they're just writing in their notepads or whatever.
Yeah.
So you got to write a lot more new stuff. But you need to learn but it's like when you're young, you need to learn how to make a joke good.
Folks, summer is here. Well, not quite. Spring is here. Summer is coming. But what better way to celebrate than with Jolly Good Soda, the best soda this side of the Mississippi or that side of the Mississippi. But you can only buy it in stores in Wisconsin. However, if you go to jollygoodsoda.com, you can get all that soda you want shipped to your house. You bet your ass. And they've also got soap, Jolly Good soap. And they got T-shirts and a whole lot of stuff. Check it out, jollygoodsoda.com. And also, folks, Fleet Farm. I want to give a big shout out to Fleet Farm. Colleen, Fleet Farm's got everything. Everything you need or don't need for summer, you go to the Fleet Farm. Here's how it works. You go to Fleet Farm for something that you need, and you leave with a bunch of stuff you don't need, but you're happier that you got it.
You're so right.
Yeah.
I think looking at the house, Cripes Inc., I think we could get some flowers going. I think, and that we can definitely get some like hanging baskets from Fleet Farm. I think it'd be nice if we got some nice decor here.
Yeah, that's a very good thought.
Yeah.
Very good thought.
Yeah.
Am I going to go out and do that?
No, I feel like if you just give me your credit card, I'll go get some stuff. I think we could do some nice decorating. Yeah.
You want to do that?
I would. I feel like we have great dandelions going in the front yard right now. Why not match it with some flowers?
Well, dandelions are flowers.
Yeah, but so I was just going to say.
Flowers.
I think it'd be nice if we got some hanging baskets. We don't really have to, they kind of take care of themselves.
Yeah, that's true. No, hey, this is mi casa, su casa.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I think we could do that. And then when we were doing the gardeners video last year, they have they have a really good greenery in area and stuff. That's where I got all the flowers from
they
last
do.
year. So.
And the soil and all that stuff. And actually, I got a new bird feeder, so I got to get over to Fleet Farm anyway to get some different types of bird seed. Yeah.
What kind of bird are you trying to attract? A merganser? Because apparently mallards are basic, is what I got told.
Yeah, Colleen sent me, she was shopping this weekend. She found me a picture of 2 ducks, and she said, "Oh, you like birds? How about these?" I was like, "Those are mallards. They're a little basic
snob.
for my wall."
You're a bird snob.
I mean, if you did send me over pictures of mergansers. But no, to get back to the bird feeder, if they've got, someone told me that they had a flaming tanager was spotted.
What's that?
It's a tanager around here. We get scarlet tanagers this time of year. I haven't seen one yet. I'm a little bummed about that. But it's just this beautiful orange bird. And it kind of must have flown off course, unfortunately. But it landed around here.
Supposed to be over here?
No, it's supposed to be a southwest, like Arizona. I think that's what I heard. I didn't do much research on it, so don't hold me to that. Anyway, long story short, gonna get on over to the Fleet Farm, get some bird seed. While I'm there, probably pick up some fishing gear because that's kind of what I do.
And then if you can always get some trail mix, that'd be nice. I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet. Hey, anything for.
Also, can you stop by the You Betcha place and get a shirt? I would like a You Betcha shirt.
Oh yeah, you can get Manitowoc Minute merch over there.
Where's another place we can get Manitowoc Minute merch?
manitowocminute.com or cripescast.com. Best way to support the Cripescast podcast. Go to Oh,
If you want to support the Cripescast, go to cripescast.com, hit on the merch, or go to mantalkminute.com. You'll end up in the same place, and you can shop all of your Midwest merch needs.
that's right. We've got sweatshirts, that you can cozy up around the campfire with that say, oh, tell your folks I says hi, keep her moving up north, and the Wisconsin flag hoodie. We've also got a ton of T-shirts with all those slogans on them. New Supper Club shirts are in the mix, so check those out. And cribbage boards, the whole deal. And Colleen, there's another way people can support the Cripescast if they're so interested.
There is.
Patreon?
I know. I just was like,
You were doing a fake toss
I
to
don't
me.
know. Yeah. If you go to patreon.com/Charlie Barons, you can get behind the scenes, deleted scenes, fan Q&As. We should do that this month. We haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, I'm down to do that. And all right, let's get back to my conversation with Nate.
What was the first joke that you wrote that you're like, all right, this is what I needed? Do you remember that? Like your first good joke?
I think my first big joke was like this Superman joke, where I was like with Superman, like there's a bird, there's a plane. No, it's Superman. And I'm like, what's with that guy's eyesight? Like that guy can't tell the difference between a bird or a plane.
Yeah.
Like something along, it was like that.
Yeah.
And this was forever ago, but it was that one. And there was another, like, they were all kind of like easy jokes. Like my accent, I'm from the South. Someone's like, I say I'm from Tennessee. They're like, oh, someone in Florida. Like they just,
yeah.
So it was like that, like, nothing crazy, but it was like, that was like a perfect opener. And then that was a perfect closer for like where I was. And those would hit hard.
Yeah.
So I remember that Superman was probably my first closer, closing on, 10-minute sets. Like, what I mean? It's not like I'm headlining. Like it's but like, if I had to do 30 minutes, like I was going to close on that.
Yeah. Did you in your comedy class, did you have like some prompts you use or like mechanics that you still use today when you're writing your new sets?
Like, what do you mean? Like
I remember I took a comedy class and they said, write 5 facts about yourself, then try to write punchlines off of that. And then using like the laughter triggers, like recognition or juxtaposition or, small thing made big. Do you like have like boxes of things like that that if you're having trouble with a joke you go to, or do you just kind of work it out till it works?
No, I just kind of work it out. So, I mean, I wish I did. Like that's, it's, like when you're writing stuff, because it's like I've had to deal with it now with like when you shoot a special and you have to get a new hour. And like this last special, like I had to get a new hour pretty quick. And people are really coming to these shows now and they know every joke. Yeah. And so at first, you put a CD out, you're like, I got to do new stuff. You're like, nobody knows your dumb CD.
Right.
So you're like, yes, try to get new stuff, but there's no pain. You're like, but I don't want to repeat. You're like, nobody's listening to your CD. Yeah. Nobody knows. Trust me. And then, but then like as it goes, and then people do start coming, and then they are coming there for that reason. Then you're like, oh, I got to get new stuff. So there's like a panic, like this last special, and now I'm like super busy and I'm on the tour and I'm on the road. So it's like, I'm not like just home living life, which is where you get all your stuff. So it was kind of tough this time around. And I was like, in my head, I was like, there's got to be like a formula. You think there's a formula to write a bunch of jokes, but there just isn't. And, I don't know it. Like, but you think like, all right, I'm going to like, I mean, I feel like I want to go back and read like comedy books and just be like, dude, I don't know if I know how to do comedy. Like question, I don't know how to come up with stuff. I don't have like I know that I've got my voice down like enough that I know like I'm funny. Like, so I know anything I can say is, is going up on stage is going to be somewhat like Louis said that once. He's like, everything I say is going to be funny. And so like, once you've been doing comedy for a long time, like, it all like lots of Louis said made sense. Whereas like, you know, once you do it a long time, you're like, once you get your voice and you get your thing, and it's like everything you say is going to be funny. So then it's like coming up with stuff to talk about, and you still want to make the joke, obviously. But it's like having the things to talk about. And like, I don't talk about like topical things really. And so it's like, you can't just go down a route like that. So then you like, you got to have, you know, some other stuff. And so I don't know, like I think of like, if I can have, I've learned from this last thing, I need a closer is very important. So when you're writing a new hour,
yeah,
the quickest you can have a closer is the better. Cause it's like you then, once you're able to know I have an ending, then it's like, it just frees you up. Cause the panic is, you know, if you're on stage and you have no closer, you can have 45 minutes of awesome jokes, but you're going to feel like a loser. Totally. If you go, I don't know how I'm going to get it. And then you're thinking about all these jokes that are not closer jokes. You're like, well, I got to make one of these a closer jokes. And, you know, and if I could close on this one joke, you're like, that seems like it's the middle of a joke, but it's the biggest laugh. So you're like, I guess I got to try to close it. So you like I finally got a closer, and I don't know if this closer will be my closer in a year from now, but it works now. Once I got that, I like relaxed a lot more, and I was able to like, I think even get material even better. Cause nothing had that much pressure on it as that.
Yeah. Well, what's that closer? I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, let me just it's a dog. I'll bring a dog out. Dude, I'm a hack now, dude. I got a dog that comes out. Like, it's too hard.
Well, that is tough because you're right. You get to a position where you're at, and your fans are nuts for you, and a lot of people who had not been your fan watch your special, you know, the past couple probably. So people know your stuff. And then you're on tour, you're doing the thing. And then, how do you get to a place where you can do more stuff that's relatable while balancing the crazy tour life and everything? Do you have like a process for that, or like things you want to make sure you're doing on a weekly basis that's like normal people things?
Yeah, I mean, I'm having to learn it now because it's like even today was like, you know, it's just running around and like doing stuff. And every day is like kind of, you just have calls, or you have like, you know, I'm producing some specials, and we just put out a special, Mike Vecchione so like I have 2 other specials that I directed, and I have another thing that I'm going to do for some comics. And so you have like all this side kind of, it's not side stuff, it's part of what I want to do, but it's all that stuff going on. And then you also like, I would make myself like be like, yeah, but the act is the main. That's how any of this stuff even exists, is because of the stand-up. So you do try to go. I went to Europe. You actually kind of can sometimes stuff that doesn't make the special. There's a lot of Burr stuff I learned. So Burr, I watched when Burr is one of maybe 2-3 specials ago. I opened for him in Daytona, and his special came out the night before we did the show, and he had a whole new hour. And I was like, that's insane, because this special just came out last night. And then I was asking him about it, and and it was so funny. But he was like saying like, it's just stuff that never made the special, like never made specials. So you almost weirdly can over time, just like stuff that doesn't make specials. And so you then at least have some kind of, like I cut 10 minutes from this special. And so I'm doing it right now. So it's like, and I've mixed it up. I've changed it a little bit. Like, you know, it was like stuff that was like, I could cut it. And then it's like, it kind of fits better now in the new hour. So it's like, you know, that helped, because I was like, all right, I got a 10-minute chunk.
Yeah.
Kind of build off of. I knew I wanted to talk about, I'm talking about college some in this one. And I was like, so I knew I wanted to talk about college, and like, you kind of think about like, here's some stuff I want to talk about. And so you just kind of do that. And then I would go to Zany's, and you just kind of run a couple sets. You do it, you know, every night. I usually, when I'm building new, like after you tape a special, I'll try to open with all the new stuff and see how far I can get, and then do the old stuff. before the special comes out. And then because you can get a good, you can like be like, all right, I got like, I did 25 minutes tonight before I had to do something from the special. And then you just slowly do that until you build it up.
What about crowd work?
I don't do it, but
you don't do it.
No, I've done it. I had to do it, and I've done it, but I'm not a good crowd work person. I'm trying to get a little better at like, just so it's not such a wall sometimes, where it feels like you go out and you do the show and there's no, like this last special I just asked the crowd, like, who's a lot of firstborn people here tonight, and get an applause from. It's like even that, just to have like some, interaction. That's a real interaction instead of just all this kind of act. But crowd work, my buddy Big J Okerson just had a special, came out today. He's unbelievable at crowd work, one of the best. And so he does a lot of it. I know a lot of comics that do it. Norman, Sam, they do that kind of stuff. I don't do it. I just I like to have an act, and I just want to do the act and I want to do my thing. I was never the best at crowd work in New York. I never was super comfortable doing it. It's you would have to do it because when you're hosting, you'd be like, well, where are you guys from? Oh, you're from this. But I just don't think never went towards it or whatever. I never really did it much.
And then it's interesting because these days, you kind of came up at the era sort of right before social media was how all comedians were kind of popping off to a degree. Do you feel like the pressure to, because I bring up crowd work because crowd work's that's a big video vehicle for people who are stand-ups who are trying to get video content out. It's nice you don't burn your material or anything like that. Do you find pressure, you've made it by the, any comedian who's out there today, your name comes up, it's like, oh, you made it, but do you still feel pressure to do more social media stuff, or do you kind of not care about that?
No, I do. I mean, I have people that run my social media, and we put clips out and put my special out and do the podcast and do that kind of stuff. So yeah, I very much feel it. I'm not involved in it. I knew, it's crazy to think that, when I started, it was like YouTube wasn't, I would still send tapes. You would send
wow.
My first stuff is on VHS, and this is 2003, but it's still, that was VHS thing. And then it was these little things. Then you're able to do it on a smaller camcorder. And I remember even when you would try to send a link to a comedy club to get them to book you. And some of them would be like, just mail us the tape. They didn't, and you're but it's you're like, I know, but look, I know this computer stuff's confusing, but this thing's so easy.
You just have to click the button, dude.
Yeah, you just click the button, dude. It's going to show up, and then maybe I can feature at your club in Iowa. So it's, and then YouTube came, and I put a bunch of stuff up on YouTube, and because you just didn't know what any of this stuff was. The tough part, comics starting today, it's a very tough thing. I definitely am happy I started where I started, because it's tough. Because it's there. I understand the crowd work stuff. I understand that you don't have to waste your material. That stuff is a way to really draw people in, and you can't write enough material that for how much you need to put out. You can't write that much material. That would be good. That's just crowd work is something that you can do.
Yeah.
So that it's hard. I would just say you just want to keep an eye on what kind of crowd do you want coming to your shows? Do you want to do an act? If you're just doing crowd work, you're going to have people yell out stuff. Bill Burr, you remember his Philly rant?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That's what made him.
So I was in New York when that happened. So I remember talking to him. That's really what topped it off. So he goes to Caroline's, after like a year after that, or whatever it was after that. And so people in the crowd started just yelling the cities they're from, wanting him to just trash those cities. And Burr would just, I mean, and he had to do this at every club. He had to go, and he's like, I'm not trashing your city. I'm not just going to become this comic that has to go around and trash these people's cities. Yeah. And like, I think I saw that, and and you're like, it's like, yeah, you don't want to become something that you don't want to end up having to do.
Right.
So you're in a very tricky situation. Love the younger comics. They're in very tricky situations where you got to deal with that, but it's like, you got to have a balance of, it's like set the stand, even if it's like you posted crowd work stuff, you're like, I do this at the last 10 minutes of my show, just so people come see you, they know you do it at the end, or maybe you do it up top, or you do it whenever you do it, right. Whatever you want. But it's, it's like, you got to be careful at like, and it seemed like nothing right now, but if people start coming, you just don't want to, it's going to get tiring, a full year of just, hey,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also, because you become known for that. And that's what people do. It is tough to like build that set. I mean, that's kind of another thing too. If you're known for anything and then you get your fans starting to come, do you ever feel like you can't get a realistic idea of what's like funny or not because your fans crowd the shows and then you put something out? I don't think you've ever put out a bad special by anyone's imagination, but do you ever worry that like some of the jokes maybe that you're doing now as your fan base is growing are laughing because it's you instead of at the joke?
Yeah, I'm worried more now about this new hour than I am of any hour. The last one, Hello World, I was very happy with. And I built that up. That was right after COVID. So I was at home. I was able to gather a lot of material. Like I went and did that material, and I was selling tickets and stuff. I was doing my own theater shows and all that kind of stuff, but it was like, I mean, after this one, it's like at a different kind of level, and where now it's like, you can tell they really know your rhythms and really know everything. So I'm very self-conscious about it. I always have comics on the road with me. So I always, have people, I'm like asking them, I'm like, does this feel like I'm just getting away with, they're happy that I'm there? If you constantly worry about that stuff, I think you're okay. Cause you're aware about it. You're aware. And so like anything that someone doesn't want to be, as long as you worry about it, you're going to be fine. It's when you stop worrying about it. That's when you see the person they buy into themselves, and then they're not going to be that comic anymore.
Yeah. And like, does your wife, do you ever test, like if you have a joke, like your notes section or whatever, you say you're writing stuff down. Do you first test it out with her? Do you test it out with a comic? Like who's the person you go to if you need to know right away if something's going to kind of work or not?
I'm not going to say it to my wife some, and then, some of the other comics are like, hey, I'm saying this thing. Is this funny? You're like, is this funny? And then you just kind of say it. And it's not even like it gets a big, you're just trying to be like, right, is that wording right? Like, or some of the guys on the road, I'll kind of say it. But a lot of it, I just kind of think about it. Like, last night I was thinking, what did I write down? Last night I thought about just my set order. So I just thought, like last night when I was laying in bed, I couldn't fall asleep, and because I was just thinking about my set, and I was thinking about the order, and I was like, I want to open with this. The thing I was closing with. I have something that goes with this closing joke that kind of fits with I'll talk about college, and then this closing joke kind of works because I talked with these two college kids, but I would rather open with the college stuff and not close with it, but I still need to have that joke at the end, because that's the only closer I really have.
Yeah.
So I kind of was like thinking like I'll just be thinking like, how can I get that and the closing joke has a little thing with my wife in it. So So I'm like, well, I can just put it with the wife stuff. And then I'm like thinking of like, well, how do I merge, how do I get into it to where it flows? You want everything, like you don't want them to realize that you change subjects.
Yeah.
Like you want them so it's like the placement of where everything goes. That's how I think you become conversational is you just got to have it where you're like, I went to college, before I was like, my wife went to college and that's how I would get out of it. I would do the wife stuff. And I'm like, my wife's so smart. When she went to college, I did not go to college. Now I'm in the college stuff. But like that segue, that's how you can make it where people feel like they're not even hearing a joke, but in your head, you're about to do 8 jokes.
Set list, yeah, in your head.
But you want them to not do that. So last night, I kind of like got on that. And so I just think about like little stuff. Like I think I have what I'm talking about in this new hour. And so it's just now you just find little lines. You're looking for lines that go, oh, I could put that line in there and that in there. And that is the stuff where I need to get better at with crowd work, where I tend to, my brain like shuts off. So I'll get a new hour and then my brain is like, all right, we're done searching for material. Now let's fix it.
Right.
And I'm trying to stop that. I have a really big problem with that. I've had it every year. I have a problem that I get in such a panic mode. Panic is your best friend when you're trying to come up with a new hour.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you're like, dude, I stink. I'm the worst comic.
Yeah, I'm there right now. Yeah.
It'll never go away. It never goes away. You want it to go away. You think there's a system. You think there's an easy way. There's no easy way. It's not, but there's a panic and you will get this material because you just have to. You have to.
The show's booked.
The show's booked. It doesn't matter. You have to. So you'll figure something out. And so just stay true to like you, and then just make yourself come up with this stuff. You're going to come up with it, whatever it's going to be. It might be completely different in a year. You just need to do it. And that's where like a closer helps. You at least know, well, I can get out on this. And even if you have to go worst case, you're like close with like a greatest hits from an old special. And if I ever did that, I would just say it. I would be like, all right, I'm going to close with an old joke. And then, I don't do that now, but if I have to do it when I'm bridging the gap, then you have to do it. And you do that. Whatever you have to do. And then you try to get rid of that joke because I don't think you want to completely always repeat. That's another thing I learned with Burr. You don't want just every time you go, they're like, what about this joke?
Oh, because so then you're like a band almost playing like the greatest hits kind of a thing.
And when you got to write so much, it's hard to remember those jokes. You don't want to remember, like, I don't think you want to remember your old jokes because that means you're not moving forward. You've kind of stopped. Like I can weirdly remember jokes from like 10 years ago, but I couldn't tell you, I don't know if I could do one joke from any Netflix special. And I don't think I could even repeat it. I don't really remember how they go. I mean, I'd have to listen to it and remember it like a song.
Yeah.
I can remember some stuff from 2010 because I worked on that stuff for 10 years.
Right.
But the other stuff, you're like, you have a very short window with it, a couple years, and then you're usually put something on tape and then it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I put out the special I did, and it was very set listy. It was very like the beats kind of a thing. And because I had that since the beginning, and I think I made the mistake of kind of wanting to include it all, but I just knew I needed to get it out there and just start doing stuff, because what you were saying about like it, you being comfortable in an hour. And then the problem is that puts a shelf life, I feel like, on the jokes because you don't believe it anymore or something, or you can tell that.
The audience can tell. Well, that's why you need an ending. So even with a closer or even inside of a joke in itself, if you don't have a way out, it's hard to even play with a joke. because then now you're searching for something. And so I don't do well. I could have a funny idea, but I'm like, I don't know how to get out of that idea. Not the whole set list, just that one joke. It's like, I don't know how to get out of this joke. So it's not really, I don't even need to say it because I'm going to just panic and like give up on it. And then I'll be in the middle of the set, just be like, I don't know what I'm talking about. And then I move on.
Yeah.
So
I've done that.
Yeah. And so it's like, you don't want to get in too much, and that gets a laugh. So it can work, but you're like, you don't want to become just a comic that does that every time. So you're like, if it happens, you just say it and let it happen. Cause it'll be organically like, you just were like, I don't know. But you can see sometimes when you see comics, you can see little stuff that's like, you're like, that was a trick that worked. And then that person kept that trick in. And then they end up taping that trick. And you're like, oh, that's a little trick. That's not a joke. That worked one time. And instead of making the joke better, you just decided, I'll just use this trick.
Right.
You never make the joke better. But if you have an ending, if you have an out, you can play around with a joke. Because if you don't get a laugh and you get a little, a little nervous, I know I can get out of it on a high note and then move on to the next joke.
When you have an ending for a joke, I feel like that's when you can do what you're talking about, is like finding the rest on stage because you're confident you can get out. Is that kind of?
Yeah. I mean, a closer is a big deal. And so it's, even if it's not going to be the closer that's going to be your closer, just how are you going to get off that stage?
Yeah.
And so if you know how to get off, and that works with 5-minute sets to hour-long sets. If someone's listening to this and they're just starting, how are you going to get off that stage? If you at least know how to get off that stage and know you can end with a laugh, it leaves you just feel much better with the other stuff.
Yeah.
And you see how weak the other stuff is. I mean, like, there's some nights you like, I got an hour, and then you're like 40 minutes, you're like hitting your closer.
Running off stage.
Yeah, it's no good. I mean, that stuff happens all the time. Like, that happens to me a lot, where you can start and you're like, well, this is not going like I thought it was going to go. And I time my sets out a lot based on that, where like, the audience could be quick laughers, where they laugh quick and they stop. I just did shows in Amsterdam, and they would laugh hard, then stop, so it like, you wouldn't be a roll.
Yeah.
So like, well, material can be 45 minutes long to 60 minutes long, and it could be the same material, but just by the energy of the room could change. And so that one was like, you're like, all right, like, and I have a couple jokes that I don't say that I'm like, I can say if I feel like I'm kind of running through this quick. So I'm going to have to throw in some of these other jokes I don't say just to give me to the time.
Yeah. I didn't realize they laugh different in different places. I mean, I've only played the United States for the most part.
But you've had a crowd that you like, you can tell, like, there's crowds that are going to be super hip and they get every single punch, every single tag. They're laughing at everything. And then you can have crowds that like are not laughing at the tags. They just laugh at the end of the joke.
Right. Like a corporate show.
Like a corporate show. Those, you end up kind of breezing through that joke. Like, there's no pauses because they're not getting the tags. So when they don't get the tags, you're like, you just basically say, you just say, you want to have another one with jokes too. It's good to have some outs. Like, how do you get out of this joke? Especially if you have a long joke. If you have a long joke, try to have some exit points. So
a few off ramps.
Yeah, a few off ramps that are like, if I need to, I can make this joke a minute long, or it can be 5 minutes long. But if I need to get out of it because it's not working, I can get out of it.
Right.
You should be able to do, like, if you have when you do your hour-long set, you should be able to be like, well, what if you did that? You had to do a late. I think about like that a lot. Like, what if I have to do a late night set? Because it gets harder once you start doing an hour to come up with a 5-minute set because you're used to talking for an hour.
Yeah, the time not really being an issue.
Yeah. And so then but think about your set and go, what would you like? Your new hour now, you're like, what would you do if you were like, you got to do the Tonight Show tomorrow? What are you going to do? You're going to have to tighten stuff up.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's not a bad way to kind of like, all right, let me see. What would you do? Like if you go do spots around town and you're doing 10 minutes and you need to, like, you want to destroy with your new material. Well, what are you going to do for that 10 minutes? You know?
Right. Yeah.
That's
it's almost like, I mean, I do a lot of sketches, so it's almost like, is this, where you're just crushing punchlines into like 30 to 60 seconds? Like, is it going to give you that many laughs? It's almost a different way of thinking about writing it, as opposed to, I'll let this breathe. I may find something here or there, but that's just a lot of fluff on stage.
Yeah. When they're there to see you and you have more time, it's just it's completely different.
Yeah. We got a couple minutes left. I want to respect your time here, and you do not have to play this game, but if you want to, what is the last note in your note section for stand-up? Could be good, bad, terrible.
There's a few that I wrote last night. One's about my dad, because I've talked about my dad getting older. My dad loves surgery, and he'll have surgery in a heartbeat.
Oh, really? He loves getting it?
I mean, he doesn't, but he also does. Like if there's a way to, instead of physical therapy, where it's like, well, you could do this instead of surgery, my dad's going to be like, well, let's just do the surgery. And he doesn't. And then the doctors are like, well, you got to be careful. And he's never careful. Then it's like, he's going to end up being back to another surgery. So I have another joke about that. And so like, I just thought about that. So I wrote that down last night.
Oh,
that's
nice.
just kind of an add-on. And the other one is, one was like, how long did it take society to be okay with the rain?
Yeah.
There had to be, I mean, just some pretty crazy days of just like, what is this?
Yeah.
What is happening? Because it's pretty wild that the whole world just rains water.
Yeah.
And no one freaks out about it anymore.
Right. Yeah. How many generations had to tell each other about that to realize that this is a normal thing?
It's normal.
And yet still, and maybe it's mostly a Midwest thing, anytime there's a weather issue, that's the first thing you're talking about, and probably the only thing you're talking about with somebody you don't want to dive deep into your emotions with,
Yeah.
Like, that rain.
Yeah, that rain's crazy. You're like, yeah, it's raining here today. You're like, I know, it's crazy.
God's car wash, tell you what.
Yeah.
I like that. Those are great. I'll say mine because that's how this game's played. The last thing I wrote was dressed like an off-duty priest. I don't know where I'm going to put that. I don't know if it's going to do anything, but I feel like an off-duty priest, so it'd be like that shirt tucked in, like button-up shirt tucked in, maybe no collar even, You wouldn't know, but you kind of know.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like they could kind of tell.
Yeah.
Like an off-duty cop, where it's, like an undercover cop, like where you're like, you're not really hiding it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You like to suss it out. You like, you see if he wants a sandwich or something, just see if he does the Father, Son, Holy Ghost before he eats. That's a dead giveaway right there.
Yeah, you have lunch with him. You got to be like, you just kind of, you wait to let him eat first. Because we're going to be praying or we're not going, like, you don't know.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Does it? You're like, I knew it.
Yeah. Not a non-denom there. No.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so much fun, man. I wish I could talk to you for another hour, but I do appreciate you coming on. And just as a comedian, coming up myself, it's just awesome to hear all your insight on it, dude. I appreciate that.
Look, I love talking comedy. So yeah, I loved this, dude. It was awesome.
Dude, thank you so much.
Great talking to you, dude.
Awesome. You too. We'll see you soon.
Well, folks, that is it for another episode of the Cripescast. Special thanks to Nate for coming on. You can follow Nate at Nate Bargatze. It's NateBargatze. And same thing with a .com at the end of it for his website. Make sure you follow him. Make sure you find him on tour wherever he is touring. You can find that on his website. And you can also Follow the Cripescast at Charlie Barons or at Cripescast, anywhere you get your social medias. Just follow at Cripescast or at Charlie Barons. Also, Cripescast.com. Yeah, if you need anything specific, clips, videos, all that sort of stuff. And our Patreon.
Patreon.com/Charlie Barons.
Thank you, Colleen.
Yep.
Shout out to Colleen Maraka, executive producer of the Cripescast. Also, shout out to Hannah Milos for editing this sucker and all the others. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the heck out of your deal and keep her moving and watch for deer. Okie dokes. Bye-bye.
So roll out the barrel and get the band brewing. Life's got you down, just keep her moving. It's on Wisconsin, the Badgers say it's the old Wisconsin Jubilee.
You know, sometimes when you're ice fishing, you put your foot in the walleye hole and go ass over tea kettle and you think you're done. No, you gotta keep her moving.